And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off just providing some basic information on the SARE program, who we are, what we do, and some information on the Southern SARE producer grants. And then Paul will take over and get into the nitty gritty of experimental designs and testing your data and statistical analyses and that sort of thing. So as you know, this slide here just gives us gives you our contact information. So if you have questions about this presentation, or if you have questions about the SARE program at a later date, you can reach us by email. For those of you not familiar with the SARE program, SARE stands for Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. We are a USDA funded program whose goal is to promote agricultural practices in areas of sustainability through research and education. We focus our sustainability on three primary areas: farmer profitability, environmental stewardship, and community quality of life. And our primary tool for doing this is through a series of various competitive research grants that we have available for various stakeholders. For farmers and ranchers who are interested in doing research on the farm, we have a grant that's specifically for that group. It's called Producer Grants. And this particular grant is specifically designed for individual farmers and for farmer groups who are interested in conducting research on their farm to try to solve a farmer or ranching challenge through the implementation of sustainable agricultural practices. So we like to say that farmers and ranchers are creative and innovative, and you're always trying out new ideas on the farm, but trying out those new ideas and putting those ideas to the test on the farm does cost money. So what the producer grants do is they allow the farmers and ranchers to test those ideas to see what works and doesn't work on the farm, and helps lower that financial risk by providing the funds to the farmer in order to do that research. So full-time and part-time farmers can apply for the grant. And we do support historically underserved farmers and ranchers and farmer groups in this area. The biggest aspect of the grant that we like farmers to understand is that these grants are research grants. So they are specifically designed to set up a research design and to test the hypotheses. And Paul's going to go over all of that in a lot greater detail. But just for now, just know that these grants are specifically research grants. So they can't be used to pay a farmer to farm. But what we mean by that is the money can't be used to conduct the operational business of the farm. And then we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in a couple of slides further up on what's allowable for these particular grants. And come on. There we go. So a little bit more information about the producer grants. They award up to $20,000 for individual farmers and for $25,000 for farmer groups or farmer organizations for 2-year projects. The expenses are reimbursed, meaning that you submit invoices and receipts for expenses related to the project throughout the life of the grant. And then we reimburse you for those expenses up to the amount that you were awarded for the grant. So generally, there are no restrictions for applicants other than having $1,000 of documented annual income from any of the crops or any of the animals that may be grown or raised on the farm. We don't have any restrictions on farm size or the length of time in farming. And prior SARE applicants are also invited to apply for future producer SARE grants. The grant process for the producer grants always begins with the release of the call for proposals, which takes place in September of every year. It's generally after Labor Day. And then the proposals are selected for funding in the following March, with projects starting April 1st. The call for proposals is your guide to what is required to complete a producer grant application. So everything that you need to know about the application requirements can be found in the call for proposals. The actual grant application process takes place online in what we call our SARE grant management system. And the online system mirrors the call for proposals, and it's broken down into several different sections. And those sections are the basic information, the body of the proposal, the outreach plan, and the budget. So the first step in applying for a producer grant is determining what your research project will be, and whether or not it fits in with the SARE program. So you can do this in a number of ways. You can call us and say, hey, I've got a research idea for my grant, and I want to see if it will fit in with SARE, and I'll help guide you through that process in making that determination. And if it doesn't quite fit in with the SARE program, then I'll provide you with some guidance in terms of what ways you can modify that particular idea in order for it to better fit into the SARE project. We have what's called a SARE projects database for funded projects, and that link is available. And it provides a database of every SARE grant that's been awarded throughout the history of the SARE program and throughout the whole entire country. So there's roughly I think 6,000 or 7,000 SARE projects that are in the system that you can search by topic and by state, by commodity, by practice. And by searching the database, it'll give you an idea of what's already been funded, or it'll give you an idea of other types of topics that could potentially be funded if you're interested in particularly applying for that grant. You can do your own research using existing literature on your idea. There is a whole area of literature that's available on the internet that you have access to. When you're doing this, make sure that topics are that they focus on sustainable agriculture for your idea. The one thing that SARE does is that we support new creative, innovative ideas or alternatives or new solutions to existing farming practices. So we want to make sure that your idea kind of fits into one or two of those areas. And then we also really want you to focus. We have focus areas in the call for proposals that are provided to you as a guide for the types of sustainable ag topics that we have available to you in that area. Let's see. Oops. Okay, so once you figure out, once you come up with a research topic that fits in with the SARE program and you're ready to apply for a SARE grant, I'm just going to run through some of the information in the sections of the call for proposals. So the first step in preparing your proposal is providing us with basic information. That's going to be the project title, the farmer rancher contact information, a project cooperator. We like to see at least one other person involved in the project planning, the data collection, and the outreach portion of your grant. So this can be another farmer, a cooperative extension agent, a university researcher, somebody in a nonprofit or in an NGO world, the state where your project will be conducted, the project start date. So for the purpose of SARE, projects will always start on April 1st of the awarded year. And then the project end date, so the end date is 2 years from the start of the project. The next portion of the proposal is the body of the proposal. So this kind of gets into some of the things that Paul is going to be touching on shortly, where we ask you to discuss the statement of the problem. So your rationale for why the project needs to be conducted and how it relates to sustainable agriculture. the statement of your proposed solution, which discusses the solution of the problem being addressed, your approaches and methods, which is the outlines for how you're going to test your idea, and Paul's going to get into details with regards to your experimental design. And we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion section, which asks how the project supports underserved audiences, and a timetable, which the timetable is just an outline of the sequence of activities that you're going to take for completing your project over the 2-year time frame. The next section is your budget. So you're going to be referring to we have what's called a budget checklist in the call for proposals. The budget checklist lists all of the allowable expenses that you can put in your budget. So we encourage you to refer to that budget checklist when putting the budget together. So you're going to want to be mindful of allowable and non-allowable items. You're going to have to itemize your expenses for each budget category, and then list a justification for each of your expenses as to why you need the item to conduct your project. And the one good thing about the SARE program is that we don't require matching funds. So this just gives you a list of some of the things in our budget that SARE will fund, and so most of it is related to the actual research portion of your project. So the cost of the sampling and the data analysis is something that we support. You can't buy equipment, but we do allow you to rent equipment for things that you need to conduct your project. Materials and supplies are allowable, and there is an outreach portion of your project that is required, so we do provide support for outreach expenses. If you have to have travel for your project, either yourself or others that are involved in your project, we do support your travel, and we do pay hired labor, so we encourage, what we expect farmers to pay themselves for the work that they are doing on their farm. And also for your cooperator or for others that might be involved in your project, you can also pay them as well for the work that they are assisting you with on the project. And with regards to the outreach plan, we do allow funds for refreshments and other things related to the outreach. Oops. And then this gives you a listing of the items in our budget that SARE does not fund, and a lot of it has to do with permanent improvements and operational expenses of the farm, capital expenses, capital investments, that sort of thing. So the buying of equipment or land, starting a farm business, or expanding an existing farm business is not allowable. Animals, the purchase of animals, and that also includes beehives. Now we say beehives, I mean, we have funded projects where farmers have had to purchase like a queen bee to do like a genetic study. That's allowable, but to purchase full beehives for your farm, that's not allowable. And orchards or vineyards, so that kind of falls in line with, you know, trees and vineyards being something that is a potential permanent item on your farm that would have life beyond your farm project. That would be a non-allowable expense. And then other kinds of permanent farm improvements, such as buildings, permanent irrigation systems, greenhouses, solar panels, those things like that are not allowable. Breakfast, lunches, or other full meals are non-allowable expenses, and we do say testing of commercial products. So things that have a commercial named product is something that's not allowable. But what we do encourage is the testing of products from a generalization standpoint, not necessarily testing a specific brand of a product. The other aspect of the proposal is your outreach plan. This is required. This is actually designed to ensure that the project results are shared with other farmers and ranchers or other members of your community to help them further sustainable agriculture in the region. So Outreach plans can include, these are just examples, videos or video series, webinars, field days, educational publications or resources. You can do workshops. You can do course curriculum. You can do, anything that's educationally related, that you can share with others for the results of your project. So this completes my portion of the presentation. The one thing that, Paul's going to touch on a lot of these, but this right here, this slide here kind of just gives you just the basic breakdown on developing a research project. The first thing you do is identify your research questions. So, what's your research idea and what's your research idea that you want to test on your farm? Then from that, you're going to be developing your hypotheses. Then you're going to decide what you will measure, how you will measure it, and what data you're going to collect. You're going to be developing your experimental design based on your location or your farm plots that you've chosen to conduct your test on. You're going to be implementing your project based on your timetable, and then throughout the life of your project, you're going to be collecting research data, making observations, and keeping good records. Then at the tail end of your project, you're going to be analyzing your data through a series of statistical analyses, and Paul's going to go into detail on that. And then at the ending of your project, you're going to be interpreting all of that data. So what do the results that you gather, do they help answer, the question that you wanted to answer on your farm? Did the research that you do, did it come to the conclusion that you were hoping that it would come to? If not, what kind of recommendations could you make for future research? So this would help others build on your work by conducting their own particular projects. So this kind of just gives you an idea of just how things are kind of set up with a research project for the farmer grant. And I'm going to go ahead and slide out of this now. If anybody has any questions, I'd be willing to answer them now, but this would give the opportunity for Paul to be able to get in here and share his presentation and give his information.
Great, thanks. I assume you can hear me, folks. And
let me go ahead and stop sharing here. Okay.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for attending today, and we appreciate your attendance, and we're going to hopefully make it very valuable to you. Thanks leading the way, Candace, for that. And as you can see, this portion is a demo of statistical design and analysis. I should add that too. The core of what we're presenting comes from this publication, which may be available to you in some way or other already, especially if you're associated with SARE. And if you don't have a copy, you need to find it on the web. Just get in touch with us, but it's pretty easily found on the web. Okay, so was that a question I heard, a comment? We're good? Okay. So there's a point here underlying these quotes here, and farmer-driven innovations is really what we're talking about here. There's an underlying belief that SARE programs for sustainability are at their best when farmers are participating and even designing experiments that will help them answer questions for their own farm. And you can see on the right the quote, sustainable agriculture depends on site-specific farming. So again, that's that same concept. And here's a third and final one to illustrate that is this is a small plot from out in the central Kentucky area. And you notice that the height of the corn is not uniform across these transects and left to right. And I think it's a wind effect to just stunting the plants on the ends of it. But what isn't important is that I know what's causing this. What is important is we don't have the uniformity in this small plot the way we would like to see. And this can happen in all kinds of settings. It's not just in this corn trial, but it just should reinforce your sense of the importance of on-farm testing, where maybe you would do large plots, okay, which might be less prone to having this problem. Yeah, Candace mentioned, if you run into so we say something that really causes the brakes to screech to a halt, you don't understand, let us know. Just go ahead and let us know about it. Okay, baseball and the scientific method. So I want to do this just quickly, but I think it's really important to do. So does anybody have any idea who the best baseball team is presently? And if you think you know, just blurt it out. And then there isn't a right answer. Anybody?
Atlanta Braves.
Atlanta Braves. Very good. Thank you, sir. And who was that? Was that Ernest?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ernest. And why do you say the Atlanta Braves? There's a reason, I'm sure. And why would you pick them?
I kind of follow them as they go. I don't really watch all the games, but I do watch some of them.
What do you see when you watch them?
Pretty consistent team.
Okay. So what we've done, I'll go to the next slide here, is we've actually gone through a abbreviated version of this scientific method. And so the observation that Ernest made is that they're a consistent team. And so the hypothesis, the idea that comes out of these observations are that the Atlanta Braves are the best team. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but we have an idea that we can test, okay? And so then now we're in the third section, and how are we going to test whether or not Ernest's hypothesis is supported with real results? Well, how are we going to test it?
Collect data.
Okay, good. What kind of data? Can you give some example?
Wins and losses.
Wins and losses. Great. What about what they do at the end of best of 7? What is that called again? It's the
Series.
World Series, right? So we can use that evidence too, and we go on and discuss the evidence involved, and the last step is the conclusion. And I might have a little different conclusion than Ernest, because I may focus on different evidence. But either way, he has got a valid experimental method going on in his mind that has to do with the hypothesis that we started with. So that's, I wanted to just make sure you understand there isn't anything mysterious about hypotheses. And in fact, as we learned to recognize our own applications of the scientific method, we can start to do some interesting things. Okay, so that's that. Let's get into replication and why that's important, what it is. I think we all understand the idea of replication. So here is a photograph of a field, and you can see. Let me back up. Okay, so we got this framework sketched out, and you notice if you look and study very carefully the visuals of the field, there's some variability going on there. I don't know why. There's probably variability that is not even associated with the color, but might be other parameters. But we've got variability out there. Now, why is that a concern? So look at the upper right, and that area is almost uniformly more chlorotic, as we say, more yellow, and not so much the corn near us. And so we could put in plots, okay, and number them 1, 2, and 3. And so now we've got an experimental design. But the problem is, and you probably already see this yourselves, is we've got 3 replicates. Yay, yay team. But in fact, those replicates are adjacent to each other. And so we can see with our own eyes that this randomization is not really going to help us sort out the effects of the hypothesis, whatever it is, and the position in the field. So, so we randomized the arrangement of the plots. And so maybe the top three, 1, 2, are treatments that we're interested in. But you can see that we've randomized the distribution of plots to increase the chance that the non-treatment variability is picked up in all plots or most plots. Okay, that's the concept there with replication and randomization. And okay, yeah, good. I'm going to ask if there are any burning questions, and yeah, any burning questions. We good so far? We're getting into the fun stuff. So let's go ahead, and then if you have questions, you can go ahead and offer those. So what we want to do is we want to give you a chance to do the initial parts of an experiment, which it always starts with observations and an hypothesis. The hypothesis is simply the statement that may or may not be true, but is testable. Just like who's the better ball team and so on. So this is a small enough group. We're going to ask you to work together. We'll be listening in because it's a small enough group. We can do that and be available to help you. And what we want you to do, and each of you can do your own, or you can offer it to the group, and basically come up with at least one hypothesis that you would like to test on a farm. It could be your farm, it could be a friend's farm, it could be something really basic, or it could be something really sophisticated. It just has to be a testable idea. And so if we were all together in a room, we would let you work together in person, okay? And we don't have that capability. We could form breakout sessions, and if you have trouble working together in this setting with Zoom, maybe it won't work so well, but we're trying it out. Then we'll switch to breakout rooms. Okay, so you have a little more kind of privacy in your thinking, because that helps people if they don't think their answers are being scrutinized and all that. We're just having fun and teaching you some core methods. So with that in mind, please start thinking and communicating about what you would like to test, whatever it is. And if you want to raise your hands to make a point, use the raise hand feature. And if you want to just offer it to the group, that's gutsy, and please do it, because you've got good ideas. I know that professionals in this room have good ideas. So what would you like to test in this world, simulated world?
What about if adding nitrogen would increase crop yields in corn?
Okay, I think it's a great place to start. Yep. All right, so let's make notes here, because we may not all sign in on the same. But adding nitrogen, and you're referring specifically to you said corn, and you're referring specifically to the whatever form of sustainable corn you all are practicing in your area. Is that right, Ernest?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So within the bounds of what we would consider sustainable. Okay, good. We'll come back to it, but any other? That's good. It gets us started. Any other hypotheses? And I'm going to take a moment to say, I mean, really anything. I had, when I did this in class, I had somebody perform Reiki, a sort of a Oriental art to improve health. I'm not sure I know very much about it, but what mattered was that the student knew more about it. And we designed a test where they did their Reiki thing with their hands. And as long as you have a proper control, You can do that. So any other, sure, there are. Any other hypotheses?
The
Author right there.
Okay,
Sorry, go
Sorry.
ahead, Ms. Jones.
Hi, this is Candace. I was just looking at bamboo production and if it's a viable domestic crop for Florida.
Okay, bamboo. Okay, viable. Yeah. That's a sort of a broader hypothesis, but very valid and very interesting. Good. What else? We heard another voice in there.
Does adding biochar onto paddocks that are being grazed by cattle improve soil carbon and water percolation?
You guys are doing great, man. Coming up with good stuff. All right, good. Yeah. We've got some material to work with, but I'm just going to offer another 20 seconds to see if somebody else has got something they'd like to throw in the pot. That's good. We good for now? Sounds like it. Okay. Now you don't have to stay with anything you've offered. You're free to continue on, but the next step. All right, let's do this. Let's formalize our hypotheses. So, Ernest, I think you were the first. Why don't you state your hypothesis as a statement?
Adding X number of units of fertilizer per acre will increase yields by X amount.
Okay, good. The only thing I would, to really put this over the top, the only thing I would suggest is, and this is for everybody, we usually formulate hypotheses in a statement in the present tense. It's just the practice, but so do it again with that, Mike.
By adding X amount of fertilizer at a given rate, it will increase crop yields by X amount.
It increases crop yields. See, we got rid of the present tense. It increases, but it's just a standard. I'm not sure it's terribly important, but that's, yeah, we good. Did I modify your
Yes.
hypothesis? Okay, good. All right, so we had a bamboo. Who was the one that said something about bamboo?
Oh, that was me. Statement. Bamboo is a economically viable domestic crop.
Great. Yep. And so what would be the alternative hypothesis?
That it is not an economically viable domestic crop.
Good. Perfect. Okay, good. Biochar. That was Walker, right?
Yes. I guess my question with that before
Yeah.
So with what I need to propose like two different hypotheses if I were talking about like both like the carbon amount and the water percolation, or
yeah.
And you can include that as just one hypothesis.
Yeah, I think generally scientists try to isolate effects and treatment effects and so on. So a lot of times you would see the hypotheses sequestered into one line of concern or thinking, and there would be several, I think, to make it simple. Yeah, so, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay. It becomes a little bit confusing if we don't actually, when you're in the real world of
so Paul, in that example, this is Candace from this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have my camera on.
Yeah.
But in that example, would the carbon and the water percolation, would those be the objectives?
Yeah, they could be. They could be. You can actually have an experiment with multiple effects being tested, multiple hypotheses being tested. Nothing wrong with that, as long as the experiment will accommodate them correctly, and you can test them. But if you're doing an application of biochar in defined small plots and the applications are well controlled and all the things we expect in research, yeah, then there's no reason you couldn't have a dozen effects being tested in an experiment, as long as each parameter is accurately tested with an appropriate control or appropriate controls. Everybody understands what I mean by control, right? What does that mean?
As in like plots that are otherwise treated, that are otherwise managed in the same way that they've previously been managed.
Yeah, that's good. Very good definition. Okay, great. Yeah, so the next one, I think we're going to go. I'm sorry, what? We're good. Okay. How would you test? You can pick any of these three or use another. How would you test the hypothesis that that you're most interested in out of these three, or any others you think of? How would you test a hypothesis? And we've already started talking about how, but let's get you thinking about it.
Well, you would use a control group, and then you would have another group that would test different parameters of addition of inputs, whatever those inputs were.
Okay. Yeah. Good. I like all these answers. Just trying to think if there's any other questions I want to ask to pull out for educational purposes. How would you do it specifically? I like all these. So let's go back to Walker's. You were the biochar person. How would you? And you wanted to see if biochar. What was your hypothesis again?
That it would improve soil carbon content and improve water percolation.
Okay. So how would you test those?
Well, I guess it'd have to be a multiple year kind of study with with a control plots and regular plots, probably spread across different farms, where you're just sampling the soil and sampling the water penetration while over the course of the study, so that you can kind of get build up data points across time to show how the control and the experimental plots begin to differ.
If they do.
If they do.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so when you say the water, what are you referring to? What water?
As in, you apply X amount of water to a specific area, keep it the same between the experimental and the control plot, and then just measure the rate at which it moves through the soil.
Okay, simulating, say, rainfall or some other way of introducing water into the surface of the soil that then penetrates, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, good. Let's see. Bamboo. But so that was going to be as growing bamboo. What was your hypothesis again? Let's take a moment.
So the hypothesis is that bamboo is economically viable as a domestic crop in Florida, and then bamboo is not an economically viable domestic crop for Florida. And I was thinking one way to test it would first be to establish the parameters for what economically viable is.
Okay.
And then look at domestic crop, as far as shoots, timber, carbon farming. What are we considering to be economically viable if you get credits back from carbon farming or not? There are a few ways to look at that. So I'd have to some more.
Yeah. And it may be a study that would carry into multiple years, not just to have multiple years, but because, the first few years maybe you focus on certain aspects, and other years the same experiment is used to focus on other aspects. So yeah, it's actually a experiment rich with possibilities. Okay, and I think we also had a comment from Ernest on this. So yeah, we're doing great. Let's see. Any other questions at this time? Let me see what. Okay, yeah, we're at analysis. Let me show screen. I don't really do. It's not that hard. Just want to share. There it is. Okay. Huh. Is this it? I'm looking for my slides, folks. Sorry. Oh, it's here. Okay. So, do you see a analysis of data slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go into experimental design and analysis. And this is a really, really basic introduction. Yeah, so let me just go ahead and start with that. So these potted plants are part of an experiment or the entire experiment. And you can see that we have 3 plants per plant. Okay, 3 plants per plant. And there are 2 treatments, a gray and an orange treatment, and whatever they are, we're going to just go through and do the analysis and worry about what they are later. Okay, so yeah, so some of this I've already said. This is the orange treatment is one experimental treatment, and the gray is the other. And you can see that they're labeled as replicates, replicate 1, 2, 3, and 4. And yeah, trying to think. Sorry, when I do inquiry-based education, I sometimes pause and think about how to best go forward. So I'm doing that in this case, but. All right, so let's go from left to right. Okay, upper.
Well, how would you randomize those treatments?
Okay. How did I? Yeah, because I did randomize these. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. So what I did was remember the experimental unit is the set of 3 potted plants. Okay, so I would take 3 plants and consider them as a unit, and I would assign a number from a random numbers table, which you can find in statistics books, you can find on the web, random numbers table. So I would take the next treatment, and if it was below 0.5 out of the random numbers table, that would be an orange. And if it was above 0.5, it was a gray. And I just kind of went through left to right, and I have, as you can see, 4 replicates for each treatment. Okay, 4 replicates for each treatment. They didn't come out in regular order, and that's not surprising because they were randomized. Yeah, that might be enough. No, it isn't. It's so. We really didn't take the time, and we'll have to do this in another setting. But you probably heard, at least some of you, of randomized complete block designs. That's sort of the most common design in experiments, field experiments. So we did not assign according to the randomized complete block design. We'll include that in future trainings, but we'll also include the design that we have here. And this is a completely randomized design. Completely randomized design. So So, and you can look at a plot design and not always know right away what it is, okay? But you could, you figure it out, or you set it up to be a certain experimental design. So this is a completely randomized design. Starting in the upper left, here we're getting a orange, and then continuing to the right, gray, and then continuing to the right, gray and orange, and then gray, then three, there's two more oranges, so that's three in a row. And anyway, so this is how you come up with a randomized design. And this one particularly is called a completely randomized design. There's no restrictions on which position got which treatment, okay? Is that good? Is that understood well enough?
Yes.
All right, so this is our sampling now, because somebody rightfully talked about how we're going to want to take samples from these plots and do an analysis on them, maybe measure disease development, or maybe measure plant height, or Ernest, what might be a factor you were measuring in this experiment, designed to test your hypothesis? What would be something you would measure out of this experiment?
Bushels per acre.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, any others, folks? We're doing pretty well here. All right, so here we've taken the samples, we've analyzed the results, and again, forgetting what exactly that we're measuring here, it's going to give us results that you can see that we've pasted in there: 78 left to right, 78, 59, 89, and so on. And so let's kind of just walk through these results here. So upper left, we got a 78. Maybe let's give it a significance. It's a 78 percent diseased tissue. Okay, I'm a plant pathologist, so I go for that. 78% blighted. Yeah, and then the gray is only 59% blighted. So maybe that gray is looking pretty good. And then you go to the next two, and you see that 89 is the rep 2 gray, gotten clobbered. Yeah. And the orange is just really pretty, it's a pretty plant, and so on. So that's when we get data, we might look at it and say, that 89 looks, or that 59 up there looks pretty good. I'm liking 59, that treatment, and except in the very next treatment, it flip-flops. The gray is not so good. Okay. So we're going to do a statistical analysis just to show you how to really sort out this variability that is always present in nature. Okay, so let's hang on, I'm trying to picture. Okay, so you should see a statistical calculator. It's a lot of small print, very complex, but within reach. Okay, certainly for you all, well within reach. We have taken the numbers, the data up in the upper, and pasted into the box in the upper left. Okay, and there they are, ready to be analyzed. And so we're going to click calculate. I'm not going to do that because I'm not connected to the internet. But when you click calculate, then what it spits out from your data are the values you see in the left-hand side. So you should be able to see the mean, the median, and the mode, and the standard deviation, and the variance, and much more than I need, but that's okay. That's all right. So mostly I'm just interested in the mean for the treatment and the standard deviation. So I'm going to push the button that says calculate, and I'm going to come up with the median, the mean, and the standard deviation, and they're there. Okay. So now that's for the one of the two treatments. I'm not sure which one, it might be the orange. But here are the both treatments for the experiment. So we've got upper, and look in the upper left, and there are the data. And the lower left on that side are the summary information about those. Okay. And then on the right side, the left was the orange treatment. The right side is the gray treatment. And you can find, once again, your standard deviation and your mean and whatever else you might need. Okay, so there they are, just sitting, waiting for you to harvest those analyses, that analysis, and then we put those values, the standard deviation, the mean, into, well, first of all, I put them into a table so they're easier to see. Okay, so the orange and the gray differ in their average or their mean. They differ in their standard deviation, but actually not by much. And there's a p-value, and we're going to come back to that. Okay, but I want you to see if you take your average and your standard deviation and put it in another statistical calculator. These are freely available. There's no charge for you using these. You see on the left, you see sample 1. That's actually the orange plant treatment. It will analyze the values that I was stressing, the mean, standard deviation. It will analyze those in both treatments. Sample 1 on the left is your orange, and sample 2 on the left is your gray. And it takes these values and spits out the numbers on the right. And the difference is really what we're interested in. Okay, we're interested in, is there a difference between the orange treatment and the red and the gray treatment? Okay, and there's a p-value of 0.8320. And this is, in a way, a little bit disappointing, only in the sense that I can't take you through, I don't know a way to teach the p-value without, some a little bit more hardcore statistics. But I know that some of you have seen these p-values, and I want to say that the simple way to think of p-values is just remember the number 0.05, 5%, 0.05. If your p-value for your experiment is higher than 0.05, there's probably no benefit or effect of the treatment on the difference. There's no effect of the treatment on the difference. So, and it's quite way high, right? It's like 0.83, way above 0.02, 0.05, way above. Now, what is this? Candace did a great job of reminding me to make sure the significance is talked about, or the meaning of your results. So what is that? What would that tell you about the treatments in this, even without even knowing what the treatments are? What does that 0.83 tell you?
It's probably not worth doing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And maybe that's a good thing to find out, right? Sometimes we're excited by positive results. Sometimes we're disappointed by positive results. But yeah, this tells you that if we expect a difference, we're going to be disappointed. Yeah, good. So these statistical calculators are available online. We already did this. We already did this. We already talked about control treatments. We could talk a little bit about more about control treatments, but Yeah, a couple of, let me stop here and open it up for questions or comments, and then we'll loop back to the some points that we need to make. How are we doing on questions? And
This question might go back to like the first part of the presentation, but if we farm on other farmers' land, can
yes,
you still apply for a research grant for that? Like
well,
if you don't own the land personally?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, yeah, she's the one in charge of that program, so that's a good definitive answer. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty good coverage. We've got a few points to make here, but one is this here, and Candace, how are we doing with you? Is there anything you want to say at this point?
No, Paul, no, we're good.
We're good. Okay. So this is a figure out of a proposal, very nice proposal out of a SARE program. And this is to show you that there's different ways to derive important information from farmland. And this one is showing an observational study, not an experimental study, but an observational study. And I've done observational studies. They are can be very useful. This person was clearly doing a good job of thinking through and seeing what it means in different for their observations in different parts of the farm. It's an observational study, so we would probably allow it under many circumstances. I think Candace can comment, but the point is the strongest approach is the experimental approach. That's a well-recognized principle. It's not that this is the observational approach is a bad approach, not at all. It's just the strongest way is the experimental approach. And yeah, Candace, what do you want to say about any of this?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to just add that the proposals that we receive from farmers on our producer grants are a combination of both. They are either an observational study or they're a research study. I can tell you, we fund both. I can tell you that the reviewers do look for strong experimental designs in a research project because they want to see how the results are going to have an impact on the research that you're doing. So, so they do look for experimental designs in projects, but we do fund as well good observational studies as well.
Good. Yeah, good points. Yeah, so that yeah, there's a few points to make here. How can this experiment? Yeah, okay. I thought I hit the slide, but it's a good one. This is a field experiment. Okay, and they've done something that we can see the effect on the plant. They actually sprayed a fungicide, but that's but the question is, how can this experiment be improved?
I think the test sites should be more uniform, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a good one. Okay. Anything else?
Should be more highly defined, maybe.
Okay. You're seeing the entire experiment here. Non-treated and treated. So if I go in and take samples out of the non-treated and I go into and take samples from the treated, can I conclude that one of these is better? Or maybe not. It's not a good. No, don't throw that out. Well, okay. So they've got a stripe where they sprayed. Is this experiment replicated?
No.
No. The light come out on this one. This is a good one. Yeah. And maybe it was just a matter of making a few randomized passes. It could have been easy fix. A randomized pass would be like, I spray along the edge of the field, I turn the sprayer off, turn around, come back the other way, and when I come back the other way, whether I have the sprayer on or off is determined by my randomization chart. Okay. Is that good? Does everybody get that? Okay. Random numbers table, just showing you what they look like. We've done this. We'll talk about, yeah, maybe. Hang on. So one more slide. Oh, here we go. I can say it. I don't have to have the slide, but I'm just looking. Yeah, there it is. Okay. You should see something that says Organic Farming Research Foundation on the left. And so to my knowledge, to our knowledge, there are only a few organizations that actually work with farmers to have farmer-led projects that are, at least in part executed according to the farmer's desires, or maybe fully executed according to the farmer's desires. The only a few organizations that are leading the way. Organic Farming Research Foundation is probably the one I would pick out as the best example. We at SARE are working on which direction we might go in on this, to continue to teach and expand growers' capacities to do online research, or not online research, but on-farm research. And we would like to hear any comments you have about that possibility now or in the future. But as I say, Organic Farming Research Foundation is doing a good job on this. And I'll mention this too. We did say just something. I made a vague point about different experimental designs. Here are some that you might learn about someday, and it's interesting stuff. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to offer that. Somebody will be able to offer that to farmers.
Other slide again, please.
I'm sorry, repeat.
I was just asking if you could go back to this slide just for a moment.
Sure. Yeah, some of these I'd say you may not do unless you take a statistical class or two in graduate school. But there may be a way to simplify these experimental designs that we, if we put ourselves to mind to, we might find ways to teach these accurately and simply. So we'll be thinking about that.
The SARE bulletin does go into detail on these experimental designs.
Good, thank you.
For the purposes of the producer grant, the two that we most commonly see is number one, just comparing two samples or populations, and then the completely randomized design or the block design. So the other ones, they tend to get a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So the top three seem to be the easiest for farmers to be able to work with their control and work with their treatments.
Good point. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, and then what we left out just for time consideration, but we're doing well on time, is assessment. One of the things you have to do in an experiment is assess the parameters that you're interested in. We did talk about it, but I just wanted to give a visual to help you kind of make this a real thing, so maybe, if you were doing disease development, you would have a rating scale like you see here, 1 to 5, 0 to 5, 0 being healthy, completely healthy, and 5 being 100% disease. And usually you're going to find the more expertise you have, the more experience you have with the system you're studying, the better. But you'll also find, you sometimes need some help in developing ways to assess parameters you're interested in, and so you can find these a lot of times in if you dig hard enough in previous studies, reports you might not normally look at, but you're just looking at for the standpoint of helping you score a parameter. So, okay, I think that's actually all the way to the end. How are we doing on questions? Are we good?
I just like to make a comment. You did very good. I did not feel near as much anxiety as I did when I was in college taking statistics. So
yeah, I actually, I'm an oddball. I like statistics.
well, I liked it. I learned it eventually, but it was I had a lot of anxiety in it. I remember that. So
Yeah,
it carried me way back, but it wasn't as bad.
Thank you, Ernest. Yeah, I missed the chat, so I'll look at those as we think about any other questions or comments. Like I said, oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're considering how to go forward in SARE on this issue of training for farmers and technical advisors to farmers to do their own research. We really think that's a good direction to go in. So we're trying. Candace, what else? Anything else?
I don't have any other information. If anybody has any questions specifically about the producer grants themselves, I'd be happy to answer them. I just wanted to, just say for the purposes of this presentation that this is just designed to provide farmers with basic information on what we're looking for when you're setting up a research project and how to set up an design. And as we work to improve upon this information, we hope to be able to actually help farmers by taking specific examples, some of the things that we talked about in the presentation today, and actually putting a research and design together based on those examples. I think that would be extremely helpful as well.
Great stuff. Yeah. I'm going to put up my email. Was asked to do that. So. Just kind of got to think about this stuff, or else I'll put the wrong email. Any other final comments, folks? I'm not going to turn the viewer off until.
I think earlier you mentioned that if we put something together and we just want to make sure that it meets the requirements of the grant, that we could reach out and just like check in and say, hey, this is what I put together thus far. Would this be an acceptable proposal? I was looking for there it is. Oh, thank you. Email. Thank you. Got it.
Yeah. So what, yeah, Candace, you with your perspective as an assistant director, I think you have a sort of the big picture on that question of I've prepared this draft proposal. Is it, along the lines of what Sarah's looking for? So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, we can't actually read. We can't actually read the proposal and provide you with specific guidance on how to improve upon your research design. We kind of lean on technical professionals outside of our program to kind of help farmers with that. And so that would be somebody, say, for example, within cooperative extension or in a university area, or maybe one of the organizations that Paul had mentioned in one of the other previous slides. But what we can do is we can provide you guidance on whether your idea fits in with the SARE program, some general ideas on what reviewers are looking for to kind of give you an idea of how you can frame your proposal. Yeah, and we could definitely tell you what's allowable and not allowable for budgets. And we can provide you with information to help strengthen your proposal from an outreach plan standpoint. So there's a number of things that we can do that we can kind of, help you along the way without physically reviewing your proposal and then giving you feedback on that, which we're not allowed to do.
Yeah, and that not allowed point is, it comes from the government, and the government is trying to, keep everybody's access to SARE funds equal, and so there's that's more or less the idea behind these restrictions that are pretty common for us. So thanks for asking, and Candace has given some ways in general that I think are useful for somebody writing a grant, and having. I'm reiterating her point now, but having, working with somebody who's a technical advisor, they're not bound unless they're, they have the appointment with the federal government too. So there's ways to get you the help that you need. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, an example of what I'm kind of referring to, and I'm going to go back to Candace's research idea of bamboo, determining whether it's a viable, economically viable crop in Florida. So, one of the things that, she could be thinking about, in terms of research is, like you kind of mentioned before, Paul, is what in what ways does she test whether it's a viably economic crop in Florida? So, what aspects of bamboo would you be looking at to make that determination? Are you looking at, plant performance? In my mind immediately went to variety trials. You mentioned and getting different bamboo varieties and then testing those varieties against the parameters you have that you set for yourself to make the determination that it's economically an economically viable crop in Florida.
Yeah.
So and that's sort of the information that we kind of provide farmers to kind of help them think about how they could put a research project together and how it could be framed.
Yeah, and variety trials are sort of classic, basic kinds of experiments that are no experiment is easy to do, but their variety trials come pretty close. Yeah, good. Yeah, their experimental designs are typically randomized complete block designs, pretty straightforward stuff. And I would encourage those if that information is useful. So any other comments? Great. Hey, thanks so much, folks, for your participation.
Thanks so much, everyone. Just one last comment before we end is that for anybody who's interested in the producer grants, those grants, the call for proposals for those grants will be coming available in September. We generally post them to our website at southernsare.org right after Labor Day. And the grant deadline is in November. And then we go through a review process with our administrative council, which is the governing body of our program in our region. And they go through a review process to review proposals based on a set of criteria and select proposals for funding. And then those funding decisions are made February the following year, with projects being announced for funding generally into February, beginning of March timeframe. So if anybody has questions about the producer grants, feel free to reach out to me by email, or you can give me a call as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. I'm very pleased. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much for attending today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for putting it together.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.